They say the American dream is owning a home. But in Montana, the dream gets bigger, much bigger. You've probably seen the headlines asking, is this the only state where you can actually buy your own mountain? The answer is a shocking yes. Thanks to 19th century mining laws that let prospectors claim entire vertical peaks and massive ranching legacies that span horizons, this is one of the few places on Earth where a skyline can actually be private property. But you don't need a billionaire's budget to own a piece of this silence. This is the landscape that earned the nickname Big Sky. Not because the sky is larger, but because the land leaves so much room for it. It is a state big enough to swallow entire countries, yet so sparsely populated that you can drive for hours without seeing a single house. The distances here don't just stretch, they warp your sense of reality. The name itself comes from the Spanish montaña, meaning mountain. And true to its name, the western half is a tangle of sharp peaks and glacial valleys that dwarf the human world built below them. From the gold rush ghost towns of the south to the grizzly-filled wilderness of the north, the wilderness here doesn't just overshadow civilization, it erases it. Today, we are journeying through the wild heart of the Rockies. We're going to explore the hidden gems, the dangerous beauty, and the vast open spaces where the West is still wild. Welcome to Montana. Our journey north begins at the crown of the continent. Where the continental divide splits the sky, we find ourselves in Glacier National Park. This million-acre wilderness straddles the border between Montana and Canada, preserving a landscape carved by ancient ice. Here, over 700 miles of trails lead through valleys where glaciers once flowed like frozen rivers. The Blackfeet called this place the backbone of the world. And standing among these peaks, you understand why. Grinnell Glacier clings to the mountainside like a memory of the Ice Age. Named after conservationist George Bird Grinnell, in 1887, this glacier has shrunk from over 700 acres to less than 150 today. The hike to reach it winds through bear country, past turquoise lakes colored by glacial flower. Each step takes you higher into thinner air, where mountain goats watch from impossible ledges. Lake McDonald stretches for 10 miles through the heart of the park. Formed by glacial carving over thousands of years, its waters reach depths of 472 feet. The western red cedars and hemlocks along its shores create a rare inland temperate rainforest. When morning mist rises from the surface, the lake becomes a mirror for the surrounding peaks, doubling the world in perfect symmetry. Logan Pass marks the highest point accessible by road in the park. At 6,646 feet, the Hidden Lake Trail begins here, among alpine meadows that bloom for just weeks each summer. The The boardwalk crosses fragile tundra, where marmots whistle warnings and bighorn sheep graze on windswept grasses. Hebgen Lake itself waits at trail's end, a glacial pool surrounded by peaks that scrape the Montana sky. Just beyond Glacier's western boundary, the mountains give way to gentler shores. Whitefish Lake stretches across 7 miles of pristine mountain territory. This glacial lake sits at the edge of the continental divide, carved by ice ages that left behind water so clear you can see 30 feet down. The town of Whitefish guards its southern shore, while untamed forest claims the rest. Whitefish Lake State Park protects the northwestern shoreline, offering one of the few public access points to this mountain jewel. The park spreads across 15 acres of old-growth forest that opens onto a sandy beach. Douglas firs and western larches tower overhead, their branches filtering sunlight into patterns on the forest floor. Black bears wander through in spring, while bald eagles circle above the water in winter. The lake itself holds stories beneath its surface. Native Salish tribes called it the place where they found whitefish, and the name stuck through centuries. In summer, the water warms just enough for swimming, though mountain-fed springs keep it refreshingly cool. Kayakers glide past shores lined with million-dollar homes on one side and untouched wilderness on the other. This contrast defines Whitefish Lake, where Montana's wild heart meets its modern aspirations. The wilderness doesn't always announce itself with towering peaks. Sometimes it whispers through rushing water. The Kootenai River flows down from British Columbia, carving its way through northwestern Montana with ancient patience. This waterway has shaped the land for thousands of years, creating one of the state's most powerful natural spectacles. Kootenai Falls thunders through a rocky gorge with raw force. At 30 feet high and 300 feet wide, these falls represent the largest undammed waterfall in Montana. The water drops in a curtain of white foam, sending mist high into the forest air. Sacred to the Kootenai tribe for generations, this place holds spiritual significance that runs deeper than the river itself. A swinging bridge spans the gorge downstream from the falls, offering views that stop visitors in their tracks. Built for practical crossing, it now serves those seeking to witness nature's power from a unique vantage point. The bridge sways gently with each step, while below, the turquoise water churns through channels carved from solid rock. Walking across requires steady nerves, but the reward is a perspective few places on Earth can match. Fed by glaciers and snowmelt, Montana's rivers tell stories etched in water. The Flathead River system flows down from Glacier National Park in 3 distinct branches. Each fork carves its own path through wilderness so remote that grizzlies outnumber people. Together, they form one of the last free-flowing river systems in the American West. The North Fork runs wild along the western edge of Glacier National Park. This is border country, where Montana meets British Columbia in a landscape unchanged since the last ice age. The water runs clear and cold, fed by snowmelt from peaks that scratch the sky. Black bears fish these waters in spring, while wolves patrol the riverbanks at dusk. The Middle Fork drops through the Bob Marshall Wilderness in a series of rapids and pools. This is the most isolated branch, accessible only by foot or horseback for much of its length. The river cuts through limestone canyons, where bighorn sheep balance on impossible ledges. Rafters who brave these waters find themselves days from the nearest road. The South Fork emerges from the Bob Marshall's southern reaches, gathering strength as it flows north. Dammed in the 1950s to create Hungry Horse Reservoir, this fork still runs wild above the lake. The reservoir itself stretches 34 miles through mountain valleys. Below the dam, the river resumes its ancient course toward the main stem of the Flathead. Not every Montana landmark was built by nature. Blankenship Bridge stands as a weathered sentinel over the Blackfoot River. Its steel trusses marking a crossing point between wilderness and memory. Built in 1925, this narrow span carries more than just the occasional vehicle across the rushing waters below. It carries the weight of Montana's past, when bridges meant the difference between isolation and connection in this vast territory. The bridge takes its name from the Blankenship family, early homesteaders who carved out a life in these unforgiving valleys. Their story mirrors thousands of others who came west seeking fortune or freedom, only to find themselves locked in daily battle with the elements. The original wooden crossing they built washed away in spring floods 3 times before the county finally erected this steel structure. Today, rust streaks the metal beams like dried blood, and the deck rattles under every crossing, but the bridge endures. Below the span, the Blackfoot River runs cold and clear, fed by snowmelt from the Continental Divide. This is the water Norman Maclean immortalized in his writings, where fly fishing becomes a form of prayer and the river holds all the secrets worth knowing. From the bridge, you can watch cutthroat trout rise to mayflies in the evening light, their circles spreading across water that has flowed this course for 10,000 years. The river doesn't care about human time or human bridges. It simply flows, patient and eternal, wearing away at everything humans build. From river crossings to vast open water, Montana shifts scale without warning. Flathead Lake holds more water than Lake Tahoe, yet remains crystal clear enough to see 30 feet down. The Salish people called this place the lake without bottom, and standing at its edge, you understand why. Mountains rise directly from the water, creating a landscape that feels carved by giants. Wild Horse Island emerges from these waters like a lost world frozen in time. 5 bighorn sheep were released here in 1939, and their descendants still roam the rocky cliffs today. The island earned its name from the Salish Pandore people, who swam their horses across the channel to protect them from raids. Those wild horses are gone now, but their spirit remains in this 2,200-acre sanctuary. Hiking the island reveals a Montana that existed before roads and fences changed the West. Bald eagles nest in ancient ponderosa pines, while black bears forage through serviceberry thickets below. The trails wind through grasslands where deer graze alongside the bighorn sheep, all protected by water on every side. From the highest points, the Mission Mountains paint the eastern horizon while the lake spreads endlessly in every direction. A reminder that some corners of the American West remain truly untamed. South of Flathead Lake, a different kind of Montana story unfolds. The CSKT Bison Range spreads across 18,000 acres of rolling grasslands and rugged hills. This land belongs to the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, marking the first time in over a century that native peoples manage their ancestral bison grounds. The transfer happened in 2022, returning stewardship to those who protected these herds for thousands of years. "500 bison roam these hills today. Their massive forms move across the landscape like shadows from another time. Spring brings calves the color of cinnamon, wobbling on new legs beside mothers weighing half a ton. The herd follows ancient patterns, climbing to high meadows in summer and descending to sheltered valleys when snow arrives. These animals once numbered in the millions across the Great Plains. The land itself tells stories older than any written record. Bunch grasses wave golden in autumn. The same species that fed bison herds before European settlement. Elk, deer, and bighorn sheep share these slopes, while golden eagles circle overhead. From the highest ridges, views stretch across the Flathead Valley to where Flathead Lake shimmers in the distance. This protected landscape preserves not just wildlife, but an entire ecosystem that nearly vanished. Beyond the open range, the forest closes in. The Lolo National Forest spreads across 2 million acres of untamed Montana wilderness, where the Rockies meet the Bitterroot Range. This vast expanse of pine-covered mountains and hidden valleys forms one of the largest intact ecosystems in the lower 48 states. The forest stretches from the Idaho border deep into western Montana, creating a sanctuary where grizzlies still roam and wolves howl beneath the stars. Ancient glaciers carved these valleys, leaving behind a landscape that feels untouched by time. The Lolo Trail winds through this wilderness, following a route older than the United States itself. For thousands of years, the Nez Perce people used this path to cross the Continental Divide for buffalo hunting on the Great Plains. Lewis and Clark struggled along this same route in 1805, nearly starving as they pushed through early September snows. Today, the trail stretches over 100 miles through some of the most remote country in North America. Walking the Lolo Trail means stepping into a world where nature still rules absolutely. Dense forests of lodgepole pine and Douglas fir create a green tunnel overhead, broken only by meadows filled with beargrass and mountain wildflowers. The trail climbs ridgelines that offer views stretching to the horizon, where peak after peak fades into blue distance. Black bears feed on huckleberries in late summer, while mountain goats navigate impossible cliffs above the tree line. This is country that demands respect and rewards those who give it. The dense forest eventually opens into Montana's agricultural heartland. The Bitterroot Valley stretches between two mountain ranges like a green corridor of possibility. This 50-mile expanse holds a different kind of Montana story. Here, the wilderness meets working land in a balance struck over centuries. The Bitterroot River flows through this valley like a silver thread, stitching the landscape together. Born high in the mountains where Montana meets Idaho, it carries snowmelt from peaks that touch the clouds. The water runs clear and cold, winding past cottonwood groves and hay fields. Fly fishermen know these waters well. The river holds native cutthroat trout that have swum here since the glaciers retreated. The valley takes its name from the bitterroot flower, Montana's state bloom. Lewis and Clark first documented this pink blossom during their 1805 expedition. The Salish people showed them how the plant's roots could sustain life during harsh winters. Today, these flowers still carpet the hillsides each spring, turning the slopes pink against the snow-capped peaks above. Rivers carve through mountain valleys, and towns grow where they converge. Missoula sits at the confluence of 5 valleys, where the Clark Fork River has shaped both the land and the lives of those who call this place home. Here, the frontier spirit lives on in a city that balances wilderness adventure with cultural sophistication. Mountains rise on every horizon, creating a natural amphitheater that holds this vibrant community. The Clark Fork River flows through Missoula like a lifeline, carrying snowmelt from the Continental Divide through the heart of the city. This waterway has witnessed centuries of change. From the Salish people who first navigated its currents to the log drives that once floated timber downstream. Today, the river serves as Missoula's playground and gathering place. Fly fishermen cast for trout in the same waters where kayakers navigate gentle rapids, while riverside trails connect neighborhoods to the natural world. Along the Clark Fork's banks, the story of Montana unfolds in real time. Osprey dive for fish, while college students float on inner tubes during hot summer afternoons. The river's path through downtown creates pockets of wildness within the urban landscape. Cottonwood trees shade picnic spots where families gather, and footbridges span the water, linking the University District to historic neighborhoods. This ribbon of water reminds everyone in Missoula that nature is never more than a few steps away. East across the Continental Divide, another Montana city rose from different fortunes. Helena stands as Montana's capital, a town born from a gulch where 4 prospectors struck gold in 1864. Today, Victorian mansions line the hillsides, their ornate facades telling stories of fortunes made and lost. The city balances its frontier past with modern governance, creating a unique blend of Wild West heritage and contemporary Montana life. Rising above the city streets, the Cathedral of St. Helena commands attention with its twin spires reaching 230 feet into that famous big sky. Built between 1908 and 1924, this Gothic revival masterpiece draws inspiration from Vienna's Votivkirche. The exterior showcases Bedford limestone that glows golden in the mountain sunlight. Inside, 59 stained glass windows cast colored light across marble columns and hand-carved oak pews. The cathedral's construction tells a story of community determination in the early 20th century. Local miners, ranchers, and merchants pooled resources to build something lasting in their rough-edged town. The interior holds treasures that rival any European church: Carrara marble altars, bronze stations of the cross, and a pipe organ with 2,890 pipes. Each element was hauled by rail and wagon through mountain passes, a testament to the builders' vision for their frontier city. South of the capital, the mountains grow wilder. The Gallatin mountain range rises from the earth, forming the backbone of southwestern Montana. Named after Albert Gallatin, Thomas Jefferson's Treasury Secretary, these mountains hold stories older than any government. The Gallatin River carves through their valleys, creating corridors where elk migrate and grizzlies roam. The range spans over 70 miles of raw mountain terrain. Peaks here reach above 11,000 feet, their summits often wrapped in clouds. Stormcastle Peak and Higher Light Peak stand as sentinels over the landscape below. Winter brings deep snows that bury entire forests, while summer reveals alpine meadows where wildflowers bloom for just a few short weeks. This is avalanche country, where snow can move at 200 miles per hour down steep slopes. The mountains shape their own weather, pulling moisture from passing storms and creating microclimates in hidden valleys. Ancient glaciers carved these peaks into sharp ridges and deep cirques. Today, smaller glaciers still cling to north-facing slopes, remnants of the ice age that sculpted this land. At the foot of the Gallatins, a valley town marks the edge between plains and peaks. Bozeman sits at 4,600 feet, where the air gets thin and the views get wide. Founded in 1864 along the Bozeman Trail, it served as the gateway for pioneers heading into the gold fields. Today, Montana State University brings 20,000 students to this mountain valley. The energy of youth mixes with the patience of ranchers who have worked this land for generations. Main Street runs straight through downtown, lined with brick buildings from the 1800s. These structures house everything from cowboy bars to tech startups, showing how the Old West adapts to new times. The Bridger Mountains stand guard to the northeast, their jagged peaks catching first light each morning. To the south, the Gallatin Range stretches toward Yellowstone, creating a corridor of wilderness that runs unbroken for hundreds of miles. Between these ranges, Bozeman spreads across the valley floor like a last outpost of civilization. Beyond city limits, the land opens into vast ranches, where cattle graze beneath endless sky, and where a single property might stretch farther than some eastern states. The wilderness doesn't end where the ski runs begin. It just gets vertical. Big Sky sits where the Madison Range meets the Spanish Peaks, a town born from one man's vision of bringing world-class skiing to Montana's backcountry. Founded in 1973 by NBC News anchor Chet Huntley, this place was designed to let the mountains speak louder than the buildings. The town spreads across three distinct areas: Mountain Village, Meadow Village, and Canyon, each connected by winding roads that disappear into pine forests. Big Sky Resort sprawls across 4 mountains with over 5,800 acres of skiable terrain. This makes it one of the largest ski areas in North America, yet the slopes rarely feel crowded. The resort connects Lone Mountain, Andesite Mountain, Spirit Mountain, and the Southern Comfort area through a network of lifts that climb into thin air. During winter, the snow here falls differently, lighter, drier, what locals call cold smoke, powder that floats rather than packs. Lone Peak towers above everything at 11,166 feet. From its summit, you can see 3 states and 2 national parks on clear days. The mountain's north face drops nearly vertical for over 1,000 feet, terrain so extreme it remained closed to skiers until 1995. Today, reaching the peak requires riding the Lone Peak Tram, a 15-passenger cable car that climbs 2,800 feet in just minutes. Summer transforms this landscape into something entirely different. The ski runs become hiking trails and mountain bike paths that wind through wildflower meadows. Grizzly bears emerge from hibernation to roam the high country. The same slopes that challenge expert skiers in January bloom with Indian paintbrush and lupine in July. This is where Montana's wilderness meets modern recreation. Yet the mountains always have the final word. Descending from Big Sky's slopes, we follow the water. The Madison River carves through Montana's southwestern corner, creating one of the most pristine river valleys in North America. Born from the meeting of 3 mountain streams in Yellowstone, the Madison flows north through landscapes that shift between gentle meadows and dramatic canyon walls. The river has shaped both the land and the lives of those who've called this valley home for thousands of years. The Madison River Valley stretches for over 70 miles, cradled between the Madison Range to the east and the Gravelly Range to the west. These mountain walls rise sharply from the valley floor, creating a natural corridor that channels both wildlife and weather. The valley itself remains largely untouched by development, with vast ranches preserving the open grasslands that have existed here since the last ice age. This is cattle country, where herds graze on native grasses beneath skies that seem to go on forever. The river draws anglers from around the world who come to test their skills against wild trout in crystal-clear waters. But the Madison offers more than fishing. Eagles patrol the skies, while elk herds move through the willows at dawn. In autumn, the valley transforms into a golden tapestry as aspens and cottonwoods turn brilliant yellow against the dark evergreens. Winter brings a different beauty, when snow blankets the valley and steam rises from the river on frigid mornings, creating an ethereal landscape that feels removed from time itself. The Madison flows into stillness at Hebgen Lake. This reservoir sits just outside the northwestern corner of Yellowstone National Park, where human engineering and nature's fury have shaped the same waters. The Madison River feeds its waters, which stretch across 15 miles of mountain valley. What appears peaceful on the surface holds stories of geological violence beneath. In August of 1959, the Earth here broke apart. A magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck just before midnight, triggering the largest landslide ever recorded in North America. 80 million tons of rock slid down the canyon walls in less than a minute. The quake dropped parts of the lake bed by 19 feet, while other sections rose. Cabins that once sat on dry land suddenly found themselves submerged. Today, their ghostly remains still peek above the water during low seasons. The lake draws visitors for reasons beyond its dramatic past. Trophy trout cruise these depths, making it one of Montana's premier fishing destinations. Brown trout and rainbow trout grow fat on the abundant food supply. During summer, the water temperature creates perfect conditions for both fish and anglers. In winter, the frozen surface becomes a village of ice fishing shanties. The surrounding peaks of the Madison Range frame every cast, reminding us that even recreation here happens on nature's terms. The Earth itself can rewrite geography in seconds, and nowhere in Montana proves this more powerfully than Quake Lake. This body of water exists because the ground decided to move one August night in 1959. A 7.5 magnitude earthquake struck just before midnight, sending 80 million tons of rock sliding down the canyon wall. The Madison River found itself suddenly dammed, creating an entirely new lake where none had existed before. The earthquake killed 28 people, most of them campers sleeping peacefully in the canyon below. Their campground now lies beneath 60 feet of water. Ghost trees still rise from the lake's surface, their bleached trunks standing like tombstones marking where the forest floor used to be. The water itself tells no lies about its violent birth. Its edges remain jagged and unnatural, following the chaotic outline of the landslide rather than the smooth curves nature usually carves. Today, Quake Lake serves as both memorial and reminder. The visitor center, perched above the water displays, twisted metal from destroyed homes and photographs of the canyon before its transformation. From the observation deck, you can trace the massive scar where the mountain gave way. Below, the lake stretches 6 miles long and 190 feet deep at its deepest point. Fish now swim where people once walked. Eagles nest in trees that once stood on dry ground. Nature adapted quickly to this sudden change, but the evidence of that terrible night remains frozen in the landscape forever. Past the earthquake scars, the land grows stranger still. Yellowstone National Park pushes into Montana's southwestern corner, holding landscapes that seem torn from another planet. This section of America's first national park holds landscapes that seem torn from another planet. Here, the Earth itself becomes the main attraction. Mammoth Hot Springs rises from the hillside like a frozen waterfall made of stone. These terraces form where hot water dissolves limestone deep underground, then deposits it on the surface as travertine. Each day brings 2 tons of dissolved rock to the surface. Building these formations one mineral layer at a time. The terraces change constantly. What looks solid and permanent today might be dry and crumbling next year. The colors tell their own story of life in extreme conditions. Brilliant whites mark active flows where fresh minerals coat the surface. Oranges and browns signal thermophiles, heat-loving bacteria that thrive in temperatures that would kill most life forms. These microscopic organisms paint the terraces in sunset hues. Steam rises from the cascading pools, creating an atmosphere that feels prehistoric. As if dinosaurs might emerge from the mist at any moment. Leaving Yellowstone's thermal fury behind, we enter a different Montana. Paradise Valley opens like a natural amphitheater, its 40-mile corridor following the Yellowstone River north. The valley earned its title from early settlers who found shelter here after harsh winters in the high country. Between towering peaks and rolling grasslands, this landscape holds the raw essence of the American West. The Yellowstone River runs through Paradise Valley as the longest free-flowing river in the lower 48 states. Born from mountain snowmelt, it carves its path without a single dam to slow its journey. The water moves with ancient purpose, cutting deeper into stone with each passing season. Cottonwoods line its banks, their leaves catching light like scattered coins. This river corridor creates one of the West's great wildlife highways. Elk migrate through in herds of hundreds, following paths worn by countless generations. Eagles patrol the water, while osprey dive for trout in the riffles. The river supports life far beyond its banks, feeding the valley's ranches and wild spaces alike. Its presence shapes everything here, from the placement of fence lines to the flight patterns of birds. The wilderness doesn't end at Montana's borders. It flows right through its towns. Livingston sits where the Yellowstone River bends north, a gateway town that refuses to be just a stopover. Founded in 1882 as a railroad hub, this place has always been about movement. Trains heading west, rivers flowing north, and winds that never stop blowing down from the Absaroka Mountains. Main Street runs straight as a rifle shot through downtown, lined with brick buildings that have weathered more than a century of those famous Montana winds. The old Northern Pacific Depot still anchors the town, though passenger trains stopped running decades ago. Now art galleries and fly fishing shops fill the storefronts, but the bones of the Old West show through. This is where Calamity Jane once walked, where railroad workers spent their wages, and where ranchers still come to town for supplies. The Yellowstone River defines life here more than any human construction. It rushes past town, carrying snowmelt from the high country, creating one of the finest trout fisheries in North America. On summer evenings, you can watch fly fishermen standing waist-deep in the current, their lines catching the last light. The river never freezes completely, even when winter temperatures drop to 30 below. It just keeps flowing, indifferent to the seasons, carrying its cold, clear water toward the Missouri and eventually the sea. From Livingston, the road climbs toward the roof of the Rockies. The Beartooth Highway stretches 68 miles from Red Lodge to Yellowstone's northeast entrance, reaching heights few American roads dare attempt. Charles Kuralt called it the most beautiful drive in America, and those who brave its switchbacks understand why. The road rises through 5 distinct ecosystems, from prairie grasslands to alpine tundra, all in a single afternoon's journey. Construction crews carved this route through solid granite between 1931 and 1936, working in conditions that would halt modern projects. They blasted through rock faces and built across slopes where even mountain goats hesitate. The highway peaks at Beartooth Pass, 10,947 feet above sea level. Up here, snow lingers into July and returns by September, creating a brief window when the full route opens to travelers. The journey rewards those who take it slowly. Granite peaks pierce the sky in every direction, their faces scarred by ancient glaciers. Alpine lakes dot the plateau like scattered mirrors, each one reflecting a different angle of the endless Montana sky. Wildlife thrives in this vertical wilderness. Grizzly bears fish in the streams below, while mountain goats navigate the cliffs above. The air grows thin enough that visitors often stop to catch their breath, not just from the altitude, but from the raw beauty that surrounds them at every turn. Our final destination lies where Montana meets Wyoming, at a 1,000-foot chasm. Big Horn Canyon National Recreation Area preserves 71,000 acres of raw western landscape, carved by ancient rivers over millions of years. The walls tell a story written in stone, each layer marking an epoch when this land lay beneath prehistoric seas. This protected area straddles the Montana-Wyoming border, preserving 71,000 acres of raw western landscape. Bighorn Lake fills the canyon floor with 71 miles of deep blue water. Created when the Yellowtail Dam blocked the Bighorn River in 1966, this reservoir transformed the ancient gorge into an aquatic playground surrounded by vertical cliffs. The water stretches so far that boats disappear around canyon bends, swallowed by the scale of the landscape. Wild horses roam the shores, descendants of Spanish Mustangs that have survived here for centuries. The Bighorn River flows north from Wyoming, carrying snowmelt from the Absaroka and Bighorn mountain ranges. Before the dam, this river ran wild through the canyon, carving deeper with each spring flood. Native peoples called it Ishiliti, meaning large river, and used its corridor as a travel route for thousands of years. Today, the river below the dam runs clear and cold, creating one of the finest trout fisheries in the American West. Yellowtail Dam stands 525 feet tall, a concrete arch pressed between canyon walls. Named after Robert Yellowtail, a Crow leader who fought for his people's water rights, the dam generates enough electricity to power 250,000 homes. From the visitor center perched on the rim, the structure seems impossibly small against the canyon's scale. Yet this engineering feat forever changed the landscape, turning a rushing river into a vast inland sea. In Montana, silence isn't empty, it's full. Full of wind through the pines, the cry of a hawk over a canyon, the hush of snow falling on Lone Peak. The land doesn't compete for attention. It just waits, patient and wide, for someone to slow down, long enough to notice how much of it is still wild. From the deep turquoise flow of the Flathead River to the boiling terraces of Mammoth Hot Springs, each mile feels like a world of its own. The cliffs of Bighorn Canyon, the icy spine of the Beartooth Highway, and the calm waters near Wild Horse Island. They're all held together by one thing: space. Click on the video that's appearing now to continue your journey of the wonders of the world.